What's up, guys? Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you. Of course, the Oscar nominations just dropped. I hope everyone is doing okay, remaining calm. There's been a ton of discourse that I find quite disheartening, while there were some picks and some omissions that I quite frankly didn't really like. Let's be positive. So what we're going to do today is we're going to celebrate the 10 films that got nominated for Best Picture. I'm going to rank them, my personal enjoyment of these films. Now, what I want to say with the nominees this year are all bangers. This is probably the best collective group of 10 films that I have seen possibly ever in my lifetime, at least in my lifetime of covering the Oscars and covering movies. So with that being said, my number 10 is not that far off from an enjoyment perspective from my number 1. In looking at my Letterboxd and when I ranked these films throughout the year, none of these films were below a 3.5 stars on Letterboxd for me, which would be the equivalent of a 7 out of 10. And there was one movie nominated this year for Best Picture that I gave 5 stars on Letterboxd, a perfect 10 out of 10 score. Obviously, you'll find out what that is when we get to the end of my list. Now, this is not my prediction of who I think is going to win Best Picture, because the movie I just mentioned that I gave 5 to, I do not think has a chance to win Best Picture. You have to go back to the nominations from 2019 to see another group this good, in my opinion, 4 years ago, right before COVID. There you see that group, another stacked group. We get that again this year, but even a better group. Let's rank the Best Picture nominees. This is just my personal ranking. And also, again, it is not my prediction. Number 10 on my list from this year's Best Picture nominees is going to be Jonathan Glazer's The Zone of Interest. The reason I'm putting it at my number 10 is because I admired this film so much. I think it is such an artistic and important movie with a very delicate subject matter that was handled in a very unique and creative way. This film is almost shot like it's an episode of Big Brother taking place in World War II near Auschwitz. It's a very hard thing to explain. But the reason it falls all the way down at my number 10 as I'm starting my list is because of the rewatchability. I don't think this is a movie that, honestly, I may ever rewatch again. It is a very hard watch, but it's a very immersive watch. And Jonathan Glazer is a filmmaker that should be celebrated. Sandra Hüller turns in an amazing supporting performance in this movie. My number 9 would be a movie that we covered on my main podcast, Bradley Cooper's Maestro. Similarly, this is a film to, like I said, with The Zone of Interest that I highly admire. I just feel like it's a little jumbled in its storytelling. What Bradley Cooper did here, though, his dedication to not only the craft of filmmaking, but the authenticity of Leonard Bernstein's story is truly honorable and remarkable. The acting that he turns in here, the makeup effects, a lot of things in this movie are truly awe-inspiring to look at. I just thought the narrative was a little up and down, back and forth, just kind of all over the place. Carey Mulligan absolutely shines in this movie, though, and she, of course, and so did Bradley Cooper, got their well-deserved acting nominations as well. And also, my man Bradley now has 12 nominations to his name, and sadly, I don't know if he's going to walk away with anything again. Bradley, call me brother, we'll go to an Eagles game. My number 8 is Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. What a beautiful, tender coming-of-age story featuring a overwhelmingly brilliant performance from Paul Giamatti, which the guy tends to do in literally everything he's in. But the real shining stars of this film are Da'Vine Joy Randolph, who is the front runner and most likely the favorite to walk away with supporting actress this year, and Dominic Sessa, a kid who competed against 800 other actors for this role. Not only did he get the role, he had never acted before. And up until yesterday, a lot of people thought he might sneak in for supporting actor this year. I would have actually been really on board with that. This is a great period film. It reminded me a lot of movies like Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society. And it honestly could be a holiday staple too. Just a great movie to watch during the holidays. Number 7 is going to be Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things. Me and Yorgos are tight. I like his style of filmmaking. I think the dude is weird, borderline insane when it comes to making movies. My favorite film of his is The Favorite, which came out a few years ago, also starring Emma Stone and a just devastatingly brilliant Olivia Colman in that movie. Poor Things it was a very bizarre watch for me. I had seen a lot of chatter online about it. I had read a couple reviews, and I'd heard a lot of split decisions on the movie. Some people that just raved about it being a borderline masterpiece, and other people thought it was just an atrocity and an abomination. I'd heard so many different things on the spectrum about this movie. And when I finally sat down to watch it, I could see both arguments. But my taking in of this film was just extremely bizarre. That's the best way I can put it. I was eerily fascinated by the proceedings. My number 6 is a film that has stuck with me, possibly in the top 2 or 3 movies that have just stuck with me since I saw it. Now, granted, it's only been about a month and a half or so since I saw this film, but it's Anatomy of a Fall, which also landed a directing nomination for Justine Triet, which I think is literally awesome, and I'm so happy that she got in. The film reminded me a little bit of one of my favorite kind of like courtroom drama mysteries of all time, a movie from 1990 called Presumed Innocent, which starred Harrison Ford and Bonnie Bedelia. It was kind of a did he or didn't he kind of story, which is really what Anatomy of a Fall plays out to be as well. We get to see the courtroom from another country, which I was not familiar with, which really invested me in this movie and kind of kept me like interested to like kind of learn the proceedings from other countries' legal system, etc. Sandra Hüller, who got nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress here, absolutely blows away. I mean, just so phenomenally gripping in this movie. There's a couple scenes in particular where she does have a lot of dialogue in the screenplay that she shines like I just couldn't believe it. I mean, she was so good in this movie. Number 5 is going to be the sweeping Martin Scorsese epic Killers of the Flower Moon. This is a movie that I saw in IMAX that was a story that I wanted to learn more about. Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the greatest alive, was a character in this movie that was a little unsavory. I didn't really know what I was supposed to feel about him in this movie, and that made it tough for me because he kind of becomes that POV character. I would have much preferred it to be Molly and Lily Gladstone. With that being said, this is Scorsese at the top of his game from a directing standpoint, and he knows how important this source material is, of course, based on the book. And he really tries to introduce that to people like me, to the American audience, if you will, to the naivety of our country and how this has kind of been, in a lot of ways, erased from history. And I think because of that and these sweeping scopes, the broad shots, I mean, even if you haven't seen the movie, you've seen it in the trailer. Lily Gladstone is an absolute knockout, along with Emma Stone. She's right there in terms of getting that Best Actress gold this year. So it's such a feel-good story as the first Native American actress nominated as well. All right, come on, Barbie, let's go party. My number 4, Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig, one of my favorite personal directors and one of the biggest heartbreaks I experienced on Oscars nomination morning was her not getting nominated for a director. With that being said, whose place does she take? It is such a good lineup this year. And for that reason, one day she could be in, the next day she's out. It turns out that she was out on the day that they announced the Oscar nominations or the day that voting ended. She not only made a good movie that centers around the patriarchy and women empowerment and just surviving in society, not even really necessarily based on sex, but just surviving in society and dealing with what you have, what you can control. The movie is extremely deep. Now, if I had said all that and the graphic wasn't on the screen and you didn't know I was talking about Barbie, you would be surprised. The movie has so much depth to it, and at its core, it's a movie spawned from the Barbie doll and the Mattel toy line. And to me, what Gerwig did, and of course Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, I mean America Ferrera, so many great performances and people involved in this movie. It's truly remarkable. And along with Oppenheimer, it created a phenomenon that I don't think we'll ever see again in our lifetimes. And of course, I'm referring to Barbenheimer, as it's been come to know. My number 3 is also probably my biggest surprise of the year. This movie ended up in my top 10 of the year overall. It's American Fiction, directed by Cord Jefferson, starring Jeffrey Wright, who finally got an Oscar nomination. The guy is a freaking workhorse He is amazing in everything he's in. This movie is wonderful. It's funny, it's satirical, but it is important. I'm a white dude, and watching this was eye-opening. It really was, and I think that was the intent. It was one of the more profound watches that I had this year. And like I said, on top of that, it made me laugh a lot. This was a really funny movie, but it was funny in spite of itself. It wasn't seeking those laughs. They just came because of the satirical nature of the source material, because of the performances in the film. While serious throughout, it had those moments of levity that I really appreciated. And like I said, it was honestly my biggest surprise this year. I didn't think it was going to be bad, but I didn't expect to walk away giving it a 4.5 or the equivalent of a 9 out of 10, which is what I did. I loved it. And then here we go. Another movie that I gave a 4.5 to over on Letterboxd, a 9 out of 10 on my podcast. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. I mean, I could probably just go on to my number one. What else do I really need to say? You know, I said when we were doing our year-end episode, we were talking about our favorite movies of 2023 with my podcast partner and a special guest we had on, my buddy Justin. You know, people in Hollywood, when they saw this movie, you know, other directors, actors, film people, cinematographers, when they saw this movie, they were probably in awe. I would imagine jaws on the floor at what Nolan and his team did with this movie. Regardless of the story or the character that Cillian Murphy is creating here and reliving with J. Robert Oppenheimer, regardless of your connection to any of that stuff, the art of the film and the craft of it, and then when you look and when you double down on that and you look at even like the IMAX perspective, and what Nolan did from that angle as well. It's just truly remarkable. And the guy is, you know, I mentioned this earlier with Lanthimos too. Nolan is insane. I mean, this guy will go to the lengths to get what he wants the movie to be. And of course, he has carte blanche and he can do that. This is an epic, this is the definition of epic cinema. Along with Barbie, I think the two of them kind of go hand in hand, but this is the movie that people will look at in this decade as like, holy shit, did you guys see that? Anybody that listens to my podcast knows what my number one is. It's Celine Song's Past Lives. It was my number one film of 2023, so to have it be nominated for an Academy Award is like a kid on Christmas morning. So well deserved. This is such a quiet, tender film. What Song did, as a first-time filmmaker too, what she did here, and not to mention the screenplay and the writing, just created this intimate setting for 2 hours where the movie starts out with this couple eating in the restaurant and trying to kind of gauge what's happening with Nora, played by Greta Lee, and the other two guys that are in there with her, Tai Yu and John Magaro, of course. That's us. We're that bystander, also trying to figure it out, but on a much more intimate level, this idea of fate and Inyun and how that's going to kind of play into all three of their lives, the three main characters, which, by the way, these performances were top tier, some of the best of the year. I don't like using the word snub, but Greta Lee, it would have been beyond my wildest dreams for her to get nominated for an Academy Award for this. I think it was well deserved, and she turned in a performance that has stuck with me. What did you guys think? That's the way I would rank the 10 personally. Again, I love all these movies. I really do. This is such a good group. Congratulations, Academy, for getting it right on the Best Picture nominees this year. But what a good group. What did you guys think of these nominees this year? Did you like my ranking? What's your favorite movie amongst the Best Picture nominees? Please let me know down below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time in the garage.